promised, welcome to anyone who might be tuning into this first historic live stream broadcast of the Third Rail. And I don't have high expectations that anybody will see this, at least on the live stream. Of course, it'll be archived on the YouTube channel, and anybody can watch it later. But that's okay. It's apologize for the long intro, but it's the first time I've set up this system to live stream to both YouTube and Facebook, and so it's it took a little bit of a challenge, but not too bad. So, all right, why are we here tonight? Well, we want to discuss about some current things going on with our government, and it's if you've not been paying attention, your government is out to get you. That's about it, as simply as we can put it. They're not your friend. They don't care about you at all, unless you have the ability to give them a lot of money, and then they might care about you a little bit. But otherwise, the average citizen, they don't care about you at all. They're in it for themselves, primarily, with few exceptions. So we're going to talk about how to check the voting record of your federally elected and even your state representatives. There's a great website I'm going to show you that I've used for years. I love it. I think it's a good benchmark that we can judge the actions of those that we elect to send to either the state house or the federal house to represent us. And of course, most who are elected to office eventually, probably within a matter of weeks upon arrival, if they're rookies, forget about us and think more about themselves and how they can be enriched through either money or power or both. But before we get into that, we're going to look at a website. I wanted to ask a question since it's in the news, and we're in Arizona, and I want to talk about Kari Lake a little bit. And let me pull this up here. We're going to be looking at some pages. So here's just a web page. I did a search for Kari, and she's in the news. And let's see here. Let's pull up this other page. She tried to get. She has to pay $33,000 in legal fees for her case. She failed in her case. And, I'll tell you, I voted for Kari Lake. I'm not ashamed of that. I did not agree with a lot of what she did, how she handled herself during her campaign. And it did not work for her. She's an interesting person. I was willing to give her a shot, being a rookie. We had another guy just a few years ago that had never been in politics that we gave a shot to. And for the most part, he did pretty well, And again, he was his own worst enemy. And in Kari's case, I can't help but think that she too is her own worst enemy. Just how she handled herself, some of the things she said, and it's just, I don't know. I mean, it's just, it's unfortunate. And I would have liked to have seen her in the governorship of Arizona. But, to be honest, the governorships are generally benign, unless something like, some kind of out of control man-made virus strikes humanity. And then the governors become dictators. We have the gentleman in office now here in Arizona who became a dictator and destroyed lives left and right with his insane, out-of-control mandates. But he'll be gone, and good riddance. But other than that, I mean, the governors do basically governor stuff, and it's just, it generally doesn't make much news. Now, if you're in a state like California, you see it all the time where Newsom over there is, and his predecessors as well. Not sure about Arnold. I don't know. I haven't checked his record, but, they just give everything away to everybody. And it's just, it doesn't matter. And so in Arizona, we'd like to think that we're a little bit more fiscally conservative. And in a degree, we are. I think we have a surplus in our budget. And so Governor Ducey, as much as I disliked his virus mandates and actions, overall, he did a good job. And the House and the Senate here in the state of Arizona generally do a good job. Of course, nobody's perfect, and so people make mistakes. But let's go back and look again at Kari Lake, and it's what is she going to do now? And I don't know. I don't know what she's going to do now, and it's the thing is, it's just my opinion, but she's tainted. I don't know how else to get around it. She came out with and one of the things I said against that she did wrong is getting on this election denial, whether right or wrong. And we know that things happened. Of course, if you've seen D'Souza's film, 2000 Mules, there's enough to give a person reasonable doubt about the veracity of elections in certain areas. And it breaks down to this. It breaks down to they want ballots, not votes. They want ballots. And somebody was explaining that on the radio, and just get more ballots, more ballots, more ballots, more ballots. And the one thing I did like about Kari, and she's right on this, Election Day is Election Day. No mail-in voting, no remote drop boxes, no whatever. You have a day, that's when you vote. That's the way it used to be. It used to be that that particular Tuesday, and there's a history behind why they picked the Tuesday. I think that's, could probably be changed to something that's a little bit more convenient for people. But, most employers will let you get time off during the workday. I don't think they'll even make you, short your pay. And they'll give you so much time to go vote, because employers realize it's important. And I appreciate that. I mean, I think that's a good thing to do. But, they could probably make a better day, maybe a Saturday or something like that. Definitely not a Sunday. And by the way, let me say this right now as we're going forward with this. All the things we're talking about here, from my perspective, as a believer, being a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ is the most important thing of all. Politics aside, being saved and knowing that Christ is your Savior is the most important thing in anybody's life. It's more important than anything we'll ever discuss. Having said that, even if you're an atheist, you should want people like me to have people in power that believe like me. Why? Because it gives more freedom to people. We are not living in a republic. It's called that, but it's not. Everybody says it's a democracy. Of course, they're ignorant. And although I did read a historian who said that because of the corruption of the Constitution through amendments, for example, the 17th Amendment, I believe, is the one that changed the status of senators, how they are put into office. It was before the 17th Amendment, the state legislatures appointed their senators to represent, get this, not the people, the states. For some reason, and there's a whole story behind this, people better than I understand this. For some reason, it's around 1913, 12, 11, somewhere in there. Somehow people were convinced in the states to pass an amendment to where they would lose that power to appoint senators and let people vote them in. It sounds insane. And the reason they would give, of course, was because of corruption in the local state legislatures. We have corruption now, I believe. Our senators are bought and paid for by who knows who. But and what's interesting is, and there are some that even oppose this, if a senator dies or he's removed from office for whatever reason, the state governor appoints the replacement. And that's as it was in the original document, I believe the Constitution. That's the way it was supposed to happen. So they changed how they were to be put into office, made it a popular vote. So now these senators are running around thinking they represent the people, which they don't. They're not supposed to. And it raises the question, maybe somebody knows the answer to this, but it might have changed the way that they're elected or put into office, and that's through the popular vote instead of being appointed by state legislatures. But their job still is to represent the states. When was the last time you heard of any senator out of Washington, D.C., who got up and told about how he reported to the state to find out how the state wanted him to represent the state? I'll wait. Anybody? No, I don't think so. You never hear of that. Even and I don't know this to be a fact, but even one of my favorite senators, Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky, I've never heard of him doing that. The whole process is messed up. And so we don't know much about the Constitution anymore. We haven't been taught it correctly for decades, and we're reaping that. And so anyway, going back to Kerry, I don't know. She's I don't know what she's going to do now. What do you think Kerry's going to do now? She can't run for office. I don't think she could run in Arizona for anything, because she's tainted with this election denial. Now, she had every right to challenge the results, every right. But if she hadn't, before the election, been saying that the 2020 election was fraudulent and filled with error that nobody's ever proved, see, it just ruins it for her. I think it's unfortunate. And what is she going to do now? Become of course, she's known as a newscaster. Is she going to get on some independent cable station somewhere? I don't know what her future will be. But it's sort of like this person here. Let me find it here. I did a search. Let me pull this up. Well, that lawyer that called about, we're going to get the Kraken out for the 2020 thing, and it's, Sidney Powell. Whatever happened to her? I don't know. She's in hiding, I guess. I don't know what, but because disgraced. Let's see what else I have here on this. Yeah. This is from October. So raised $16.4 million off of election lies, but where's that money going? Who knows? I don't know. All this stuff she talked about. Do you remember all that stuff? All the words, blah, 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 blah. We're going to do this, blah, 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 blah. And anybody that has any sense knows that you can't make statements like that about problems in an election process if you don't have access to every bit of election data. And of course, until you get to some kind of discovery and trial or whatever, they just don't give that out to anybody. But they still go ahead and make these accusations. Now, I'm not saying there wasn't some, reasons for doing these things, and maybe there were. We know the ballot drops. We know that's what I'm talking about. Ballots. See, the Democrats have figured out a system of getting ballots, huge amounts of ballots, out of who knows where. Where do they come from? And of course, that film I referred to earlier, 2,000 Mules, you see where the mules are dropping off ballots, multiple ballots at different locations. Sure seems fishy to me. Whether that would have all been enough to overturn an election, we'll never know. We'll never know. But what we do know is that the socialist side of the government is got it down to where they can get large amounts of ballots. That's why they oppose voter ID. They don't want you to have to prove who you are. So if you're an illegal, did we mention illegals? In the news every day, hundreds, if not thousands, are coming across every day. And it's in the news about this Title 42, which what does that do? That is something I think maybe President Trump initiated or enforced to prevent people who have diseases from coming over. Which, doesn't that make sense to anybody? Do you want people coming into your country that have polio, tuberculosis, all kinds of other diseases that are pretty much eradicated in this country? You just want them walking across and just mixing with the population? remember back, now you have to be old like me, to remember back when I was a kid, they had tuberculosis sanitariums where if you had TB, they set you aside, took you out of the public, and kept you there until you were cured so you wouldn't spread it. Of course, what was the next so-called viral plague that has infected a lot of people, HIV and AIDS? And of course, people would bring that up. Hey, well, why don't we separate them? Of course, by then, in our country, we've become so liberal that, well, we can't do that. We have to let them just go about their business and just intermingle and do whatever they want, even though they have this deadly virus. So things have changed, and it's not for the better. And I was going to bring it in here, and I didn't. But let me just say this, of course, that if you don't know this, every day, this country gets constitutionally weaker. Now, I know that's you can say, Dave, we've been constitutionally weak for decades, and that would be accurate. But it's worse. And the reason it's becoming more and more worse is because fewer and fewer and fewer people care about the Constitution. They care. They don't care about the rule of law. They don't care. They care more about sporting events, alcohol, and whatever. And there's nothing wrong with sporting events. But look, Americans have become rich and increased in goods. And of course, the Bible talks about churches who have become that way. And of course, we have that everywhere in America. Churches are rich and increased in goods. And for the most part, they're pretty much worthless as far as getting the gospel out. I keep saying his post. I'm going to mention his name right now. But James Lyman was on for an episode where I interviewed him. And he's, men like that who out on the front firing lines, I can appreciate so much. And I hope that if you know a man like that, you support them, because we don't have enough of them. And in fact, Brother James, if you can find him on his Facebook page, he's getting ready to do a trip to Florida and do some preaching and street ministry and so forth. And I'm sure he would covet your support and prayers about that. But getting back to the subject is that nobody cares about the Constitution. You think all these illegals that are flooding over and having children and all that are going to be raised to respect America and its history and its Constitution? No. Eventually, and it's already happening, that the European male or the European families are now the minority, or will be the minority soon. And Pat Buchanan, this is what I was leading up to earlier, I think. Pat Buchanan wrote a book years ago, The Death of the West, and he talks about that. It's just a statistical impossibility for that not to happen. There will come a time, and it will be probably within, depending how young you are, it'll be in your lifetime, possibly, we're seeing it now in my lifetime, to where people who have the values that this country was established on, they're gone. They're gone. And of course, you see that in our government now, and you've seen it for many years. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. Both sides are just as crooked as can be, and they're both thieves. 1.7 trillion omnibus bill. Dare we even talk about that? I mean, and this guy from Ukraine, their dictator, no, he's a president. Yeah, right. Who came over here and in his dungarees and got up in Congress, and I mean, and all those people applauding this guy. You know, that guy is putting people in prison that stand against him in his own country. He's sort of like Abraham Lincoln in that aspect. You know, old Abe, he put people that opposed him in prison too. All right, you didn't hear that in school? Huh. Yeah. Anyway, so let's get back. Let's talk about the Kraken lady here. And I don't know what's happened to her. But anyway, so she's, let's see, what else have we got up here? Yeah, let's see. Yeah, that one. Yeah, that one. I don't know where they are. And the pillow guy. The pillow guy. I don't have anything up there about the pillow guy. You know, Mike Lindell. Nice guy, I'm sure. But the first time I heard him months ago when he came out with some video, I couldn't listen to more than about 2 minutes of it because he's just rambling. He has no evidence, no proof, no nothing. He has suspicion. Well, okay, and then say you have suspicion. Well, we all have suspicion. But if you can't prove it, you just got to move on and figure out a way to keep the system honest. And instead of talking about it, that's what's happened to Carrie. I'm afraid that she's done in the state of Arizona, at least. We'll see. I might be wrong. I probably am wrong. I'm sure. And let's close that out. Let's close some of these out here. All right, let's get back to the subject at hand. And we want to talk about how to check your elected officials and their voting record. Let me pull up this page. We're going to start here with something. This is the home page of the John Birch Society. If you've never heard of the John Birch Society, I'm not surprised. The media has been against them for years. And I first became familiar with the John Birch Society. First of all, John Birch himself was a missionary to China. You can look up his story online and find out about him. You can find out about the society and why they named it after him and so forth. But when I was in the Air Force years ago, I first heard about the John Birch Society. And I was stationed in Southern California in San Bernardino and stationed at Norton Air Force Base, which has been closed for years. But I first heard about the John Birch Society. I don't remember how I heard about them, but they had a bookstore up, I believe it was just outside of Yucaipa. And I went there several times. I still have in my library some of the books. One author in particular, his name is Alan Stang. Alan passed away, I believe, in 2009, but he's written some wonderful books and had a sort of a resurgence right before he passed away in the media, doing some stuff, writing some books, some new books, but some of his older books are classics from a constitutional conservative standpoint. And so I used to go to that bookstore in Yucaipa and check that out. And when I was in the Reno area, I think that was the last time that I went to a local John Birch meeting. And let me go back to their page here. Now, does it say it here? Support your local police. Stop a constitutional convention. Restore election integrity. Save our children from public schools. We could have a whole program on that. Anybody who thinks that the public schools are worth saving, there's something wrong with you. Get us out of the United Nations. That was the subject. Let's click on that and see what this does. Okay. This is the banner or the main point that when I first heard about the John Birch Society, this was their point. Get us out of the UN. I'm all for it. Absolutely. Get us out of the UN. Get us out of NATO. Disband NATO. You could disband the UN. It'll never happen, folks. You have to realize that we are living in the last times, and as time goes on, it gets worse and worse and worse. Pretty soon they've already got it. They're going to be chipping you in your hand to track you. The COVID thing. Oops, I said that word. Oh my. It's going to do a lot. They learned a lot about how to control people, and it's all part of the process. United Nations is all part of it. NATO is all part of it. You just can't escape it. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't be against it and try to do your best to make an impact. And that's the one thing that the John Birchers have done. They stood up against the United Nations. In the last meeting I went to in Reno, we were sitting around and I asked them, I said, they talked about this, and I said, so who do you have in the House of Representatives? What congressman do you have that supports this? Nobody. I said, okay, well, all right. Well, I mean, it seems like unless you've got a foot in the door, it seems like a waste of time, but it's not wrong to be opposed to it. But they've been doing this for decades. They've never made an inch No, no, but I appreciate their perseverance and their dedication to it. But I mean, they're right. They are right. And so get us out of the United Nations. That's a big deal, and I wish that we could. Anyway, so the John Birch Society is multifaceted. They do a lot of different things, but the one thing they do, I want to show you right now. Their publication arm is the New American. They make a magazine and do some other things. But this is the way they get their information out. You can subscribe to the magazine. Of course, you can read on their website. And I recommend it. And you'll see right here at the top a place called Freedom Index. Freedom Index. And we're going to get to that here in just a second. But let me just talk to you a little bit about the Freedom Index. That is where we go and where we will go to check the voting records of our elected representatives. Now, the reason I like this, now there are many, many, many different organizations who track the records, the voting records of the representatives. And this is not necessarily the best one. It's the one I like. But there are many others, and I'm sure they're all good, depending on how they, what their, what's the word, perspective is. Are they constitutional or are they socialist? Now, let's make no mistake about it, people. The government of the United States is more socialist than it is constitutional. Nobody seems to care. Do you think how many Republican senators just signed off on this 1.7 trillion omnibus bill? It was at least a dozen. Some we're not surprised about. Probably none we're surprised about. But there's really not much difference. I can appreciate the good men, and it's just there's so few of them. It's just so few. You can't make a dent. You've got 435 representatives in the House and 100 senators. And if you have 3 or 4, 5, 6 representatives, 7, 10, so you have 10. It's not enough. It's not enough. Senators, 10, not enough. They're going to lose every time. It's rare that they make a difference. All right, so anyway, regardless, you say, Dave, how is it that people, our representatives are spending this money? Because nobody cares. Do you care? No, you huff and puff about it. So what do? Next election, you vote for the same people. Isn't that the definition of insanity? Keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result? They keep doing the same things. They don't have your interest at mind. They don't care about the Constitution. They use it when it benefits them. And they twist it and ignore it most of the time. All right, so let's look at, let's go back here to this page. All right, the New American. So the Freedom Index right there. So you click on that. And you can find the congressional voting records of, anybody. They do it by the session, and each year, each 116th, 115th, 104th, and you can go on back. Let's see, yeah. I don't know how far back it goes. It goes back quite a ways. They keep all these records. And then you can look at your state legislator voting records. And the ones in gray, they don't have information on. This is a group that does this. They don't make any money for this. I don't know who does this for them to keep track of all this, but they do it because they love their country. And so let's go on up here. So I've got some at the top here of the page that are I've already looked at, but let's talk about anybody. Let's look at obviously one of my favorites. Let's look at, let's see, Ron Paul. Let's look up Ron Paul. No, he's, you'll have to learn how to spell. And let's search here for Ron Paul. There he is. Ron Paul, Republican. He has a 97 score. Not bad, Ron. Not bad. Okay, so his last year was the 112th Congress, 2011 to 2012. You can go through each one of these and see his voting record on the issues. Now, look at the issues here. The issues are based on constitutionality. Constitutionality. Now, I'm going to shock you. Do you know that the majority of what our Congress does is unconstitutional? Doesn't matter. Case in point. This is going to upset some folks. I don't care. But let's take running for president. Does the Constitution, and I don't have it pulled up here. We don't have time to go through all that. You can look it up yourself. The Constitution gives requirements for who can be president. And the one sticking point that seems to throw people off is the natural born requirement. You know, what does that mean? You can ask 20 people and get 20 different answers. They don't have any idea. So you've got people running for president and vice president who have absolutely no business constitutionally being in those offices. I'll give you one that's a little bit older. Spiro Agnew. Spiro Agnew was vice president to Richard Nixon. He was his parents were Greek. They were not United States citizens when he was born. He was not a natural-born American citizen. Therefore, he could not be a vice president. I believe it's the, folks correct me here, 25th Amendment that lays that out. I forget what it is. Could be the 25th Amendment. And yeah, I don't know. So, yeah, it says what, or maybe it's the 12th Amendment. I'm not sure. But anyway, it says that if you're not qualified to be president, you can't be vice president constitutionally. If you're not natural born, that's one of the requirements. So, you know, recently we've had, let's see, Marco Rubio. He's not natural born. His parents were Cuban refugees, probably illegal, not natural born American. Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz was born a Canadian citizen. And this man is touted as being an expert on the Constitution. And yet he ignores that because he can, because nobody cares. Nobody's going to challenge him on it. Every attempt in court to try to get these people that are running that are unconstitutionally qualified, the case gets shot down because they say you have lack of standing. You can't bring this case in court. You don't have standing for it. And so Ted Cruz, though, he was born a Canadian citizen with a Cuban citizen father. His mother was American. So he's a naturalized American citizen. He's not natural born. So why you say, why, what's the reason? What's the big deal about that? Well, because the founders knew they did not want a man to be president who had allegiance to another country through birth. That's why when John McCain, it was a big deal about him. He was born in the military zone in Panama. They thought, I'm not sure. But they said it was okay because Panama, the military zone, was under American control. It wasn't really Panama. In other words, when he was born on the base in Panama, he did not have anything to do, no connection to the Panamanian government. He did not become a Panamanian citizen. Okay? So right now you've got, and so they said it was okay. But, you know, Cruz has no business. He can be a senator, yeah, but he can't be president. Nobody cares. People will fight about that, saying, oh, yeah, he can be. You just don't understand. They don't want any allegiance to another country through birth. That's why Barack Obama could not be president. I don't care. He could have been born in the White House. I don't care where he was born. He had a Kenyan citizen father. He was not natural born. Therefore, he had connections through birth to Kenya. And that's the reason the founders said, no, you have to have American parents. And there's a stipulation in there if you read it, because none of the first presidents were natural born, because they were all British citizens before the Constitution. So there's a loophole for them, but after that, you had to be natural born. You had to have American citizen parents, both of them. So People just get all up in arms about that. I have no idea why. They did it to protect us. Of course, they did the rest of the Constitution to protect us, but they ignore it. They ignore it. All right, so let's get back to this. Let's get back to this page here with the voting history for Ron Paul. And what a tremendous representative. He was known as Dr. No. He said no on just about everything. And you say here the bill, this bill right here, an amendment to prohibit the use of funds used in contravention of Section 7 of Title I United States Code. We support that, and he voted yes, and so forth. And it's all based on the constitutionality. That's how they base how they vote, or how they measure the voting. So, all right, so now the big news is this Kevin McCarthy. Okay, so anyway, you can go to the New American, pull up the Freedom Index, type in your rep's name, senator, whatever, and get their voting record. All right? So let's look at what's the big deal now going on. Oh, yeah. Yeah, who's going to be the next Speaker of the House? The Speaker of the House. Yeah, who are we going to have here? This Kevin McCarthy, he wants to be Speaker of the House. He says he's wanted to be that since he was a little boy. I don't know if he said that. I have no idea. But since he's been in office, he wants to be Speaker of the House. It's a envious position, obviously, has tremendous responsibility and power. You're third in line to the presidency. So, wow. Not bad. So let's look over here at old Kevin's voting record. He's from California. That should be a red flag. No, I'm kidding, of course. But look at his voting record. He has a lifetime score of 60. What was Ron Paul's? 97. All right, so look at here. We've got all of these. I mean, he's a middle of the road Republican. Middle of the road Republican. Fence straddler. Fence straddler. Is that who you want for Speaker of the House? Yeah. So we've got some issues here. So let's go back. So, yeah, his voting record's not the best. You say, well, he's a nice guy. I don't know if he's a nice guy or not. I doubt it. But I don't think very many of them are nice. At least probably not honest. So let's look at somebody who wants to be Speaker, probably doesn't have a chance. Let's look at his voting record. Let's look at Andy Biggs. Now, he hasn't been in Congress as long as the other guy. But look at here. 93%. Andy is nailing it, okay? He is nailing it. Now, look down at these gun control. We oppose. He voted no. Ukrainian aid. We oppose. He voted no. COVID aid. We oppose. Voted no. Why? Because all these things are unconstitutional. Can you imagine that Ukrainian guy coming here asking for more money? Do you realize, let's chase the rabbit here. Do you realize that the reason that these countries are at war is because of the United States of America? Do you realize that we helped overthrow a duly elected official in Ukraine and put this clown in as their so-called president in 2014? Do you realize that we've been pushing for Ukraine to be a member of NATO? Do you realize that ever since, I'm going to get my history wrong here, was it not Reagan? The first George Bush. Or maybe it was Reagan. I think it was the first George Bush. When the Soviet Union collapsed, the president said, we're not going to move NATO eastward towards you. You have our word. Yeah, right. Right now, there are former Soviet Union satellite countries that are now in NATO that are right on Russia's border up in the north, the northwest part of the country. NATO is moving more and more east. And they do want Ukraine to be in NATO. And Russia says this is not going to happen. Folks, when and I don't follow the Russians. I liked Leonid and Friends, the band. They're Russians. They've been over here a few years, and they're nice guys. And most Russian people are, just like most Americans are nice. Fortunately, how people act in the government, they don't necessarily equate. So you've got you've got the president of Russia, whether you like him or not. Yeah, I know he's a former KGB guy and all that back during the Soviet Union, and had a lot of power, and he does a lot of nasty things. You mean like bombing other countries and killing people like our presidents do? You mean like that? Huh? How come they get away with that? Then you talk bad about Putin? What? Hypocrites. Anyway, so you ought to watch some of Putin's speeches that he's given when he's talking to people. Number one, he doesn't use a teleprompter. He's like Donald Trump in that sense. He knows what he's talking about, and he can shoot straight from the hip, and he knows what he's talking about. I mean, to me, the guy makes sense. He doesn't want Western ideology around his country. He doesn't want. And he's talked about the gender madness that's going on. He doesn't want any part of that. It's the destruction of the West. They know that. They know it. So he's protecting his own people, just like President Kennedy did when the Russians put missiles in Cuba 90 miles off the coast of Florida. We're not going to tolerate it. And Putin is not, and I don't care who the Russian leader would be. They would not tolerate, they should not tolerate having NATO right there on their border like that with missiles that would be just within a few minutes of Moscow. No, it doesn't make any sense. We've been poking the bear for decades and calling the bad guy. Why? Why? They're not communist anymore. There was some guy that was on, what's the guy's name? Oh, J.P. Sears on his channel. Some guy he interviewed that was, I think he was a CIA plant. He was going on about Russia being communist and all that. Everybody, what? No, they're not communist anymore. In some ways, they have more freedom than we have in this country. We can't talk about that, though, can we? Okay, so yeah, Russians are bad. How about no entangling alliances and free trade with everybody? Sounds like a good idea to me. All right, so let's go back here to this voting thing here. So who are we looking at here? All right, we're looking at Andy Biggs. He wants to be Speaker of the House. He's I'd like to be Speaker. He hasn't got a chance. He won't have the votes. He's too conservative, and he hasn't been there that long. But yeah, he's a relatively nice guy, and I've met him. Actually, I've been in his home. That was about 12 years ago. Anyway, he was in the state legislature here then. So nice guy. He has he knows how to vote. He knows how to support the Constitution. He's a good guy. I'd love to see him as House Speaker. I have nothing. Why not? Why not? But they're not. The majority are not going to do it. They're not going to do it. They want a middle of the road guy, somebody who's more socialist, and sort of half socialist, half constitutionalist, like Kevin McCarthy guy. So all right. So let's look at somebody else. Let's look at Tulsi Gabbard. Remember her? Isn't Tulsi an odd fish? Isn't she strange? I mean, I enjoyed listening to her. I mean, she's a dynamic speaker. And when she was running for president, I mean, I enjoyed listening to her. I loved what she said. But look at her voting record. Look at this. I mean, how is it she can be in the Democratic Party and then quit the Democrats because of the way they are? And she's right about that. But look at her voting record. It's horrible. Look at this. A 29% lifetime she was in for 4 sessions. 29%. This woman could have been a communist. Pure socialism. Yet she doesn't talk that way. But her voting record, it's horrific. Has she ever apologized for this? Has she ever admitted she voted wrong? She's on Tucker Carlson. She's on all this conservative station. Why? Because she's pretty and she talks the talk? Or her voting record is abysmal. It's horrible. So this is Tulsi Gabbard, the darling now of the conservative side for some reason. I have no idea why, because she talks the right talk. Let's compare hers. Now, you'll have to watch the year because Tulsi left in the 116th Congress. So let's go over and look at our favorite Congresswoman, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. All right? She's a 29% lifetime. Now, she hasn't been there that long either. But look at this. The 116th Congress, 40%. What was Tulsi's? 25%. Are you telling me that in the 116th Congress, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez had a better voting record than Tulsi Gabbard? Yep. Yep. Sure did. I'll take the bartender over the Hawaiian. You know, I mean, she just rarely voted no. I mean, she was just yes, 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 spin, 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 spin. Yep. Yeah. So Tulsi Gabbard. Yeah. Now, Tulsi, I would love to ask Tulsi about this. I don't know if anybody has. Doesn't really matter. She makes money now on podcasts and other ways. It's all about money. Anyway, so all right. Well, now you know. Let's go back. So you can go into the New American, go to Freedom Index, go down, search by name, and find your representative and see their voting record, read the bills, see what's going on. Boy, if you understand that, it should make your blood boil. And, by the way, we're only $31 trillion in debt now. It's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal because nobody's ever going to pay for it. It's going to collapse at some point. Of course, people have been saying that for years and years and years, and it keeps going on and on and on. But most of the countries, I think all of the countries of the world have a fiat currency. What's a fiat currency? A fiat currency is money that's printed that has no backing. It has nothing to support it. We used to have the gold standard. And, of course, the government didn't like that. It worked great. It's part of the Industrial Revolution. It's what built this country. Our money was based on gold. In other words, you could take the dollar was a silver certificate. It was backed by silver. You could take that in and get an ounce silver coin in exchange for that dollar bill. And I think Nixon was the last president that got rid of it, got us off the gold standard. And why is it? Because it's hard to inflate currency if you have to back it with gold. It's much better to inflate the currency and to create money if you don't have to back it with anything. We just print it up. And that's what we've been doing for decades. I don't know how we survive. I don't know. I know some are scratching their heads about it, how we've lived this long with it and how it hasn't all collapsed. I don't know. But it's really interesting. The history of money itself is really interesting. And I read an article months ago, maybe a year or so ago, where they did what they did in Canada. And it's how they started money. Their method of exchange, I think, was animal pelts. You bartered. And they found that to be too inconvenient. So they figured out a way to create a currency based on, I forget what it was based on. Instead of having to carry your pelts around, you could use this exchange medium called money. But money has been around for centuries. And it's, we've destroyed it here, and they just keep kicking the can down the road. So, why do we not check their voting records? That was the question of the title of this broadcast. Because we don't care. And if we do care, we realize there's nothing we can do about it. Well, I disagree with that. I do. I disagree with that. We still can vote. Yes, the system has its flaws, and it will probably get worse. But we have more power at the local level anyway, and we just don't pay attention to it. We don't. I taught a class at our Bible college a few years ago, and it came up. I forget the reasoning behind it, but we talked about elected officials, and there was a small group, maybe a half a dozen men. Who's your congressman? Blank. Who's the vice president? Blank. Oh, talking about people that shouldn't be in office. Kamala Harris. Yeah. See, her mother is Indian and her father is Jamaican. Neither were citizens, U.S. citizens, when she was born. She's not natural born. She doesn't qualify to be in office. Nobody cares. Let them in. Let them in. Anyway, it's all interesting, isn't it? So, thank you for watching this, and I appreciate it. I've showed you how that you can check the voting records, and we've talked about a few things, and I appreciated your time tonight. Thanks for tuning into The Third Rail. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and we will see you the next time around.